Darren Waller was one of the most disappointing players in fantasy football this year. Should you be buying or selling him in this offseason? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Moser. She is Kate Magdziuk. Check her out on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. Kate, what's going on?
Nothing. I'm ready to dive into some team previews. We've got two really, I don't know what the word is, interesting teams to talk about today, Marcus. We're going to review some dynasty buys, dynasty sells, and take a look back at some of what we saw in the 2022 season, which from these two teams wasn't always very pretty.
No. So we're going to be previewing reviewing the Raiders and the Falcons from 2022. Let's start with the Raiders. So most valuable dynasty asset. I mean, there's probably only one player here. I think it's probably Davante Adams, right? Although you can make a case for Josh Jacobs. Who do you got for most valuable dynasty asset?
I've got Davante Adams, and I think he's just incredibly underrated. I'm not sure why we're not valuing him as a top tier asset. I'm tired of absolute stud muffins being disrespected in dynasty leagues just because of the fact that they've got, a couple of miles on the tires. We know we know that these players, specifically wide receivers, can play for a long time. Like, these aren't running backs. These aren't guys that are taking these monstrous hits every single time they touch the ball. Davante Adams averaged 20 fantasy points per game this year. Finished first in the league in terms of air yards, first in touchdowns, second in targets. I mean, what is there to really talk about, Marcus? Like, this guy is actually the king of volume.
And I was really encouraged by what I saw in the final two games of the year. It's like, okay, Derek Carr's benched, Jarrett Stidham's the quarterback, Davante Adams' value is going to fall through the floor. And that didn't happen. In fact, he kind of played better against the 49ers. 7 catches for 153 yards and 2 touchdowns. In week 18, they kind of ramped his snaps down a little bit, but still 5 catches for 73 yards against the Chiefs. No matter who is the quarterback with the Raiders next year, I'm pretty confident that Davante Adams is going to put up monster numbers.
Yeah, he's the king of volume. He scores touchdowns. In that first week with Jarrett Stidham, finishes the wide receiver 2 on the week. Just really, really impossible to slow down. I don't know if you have any thoughts. It seems like Davante Adams is still set on staying with the Las Vegas Raiders, despite the fact that his bestie, Derek Carr, is moving on. But I think regardless, he's a buy, because it doesn't seem to matter who's throwing the ball. It doesn't seem to matter what team he's on. This is a guy that can thrive in any environment.
It's exactly right. Any environment, any quarterback. The Raiders want to get him the ball. And I mean, Davante Adams has even said this offseason, like, I've wanted to become a Raider before I even knew Derek Carr at Fresno State. So this is a childhood dream of his. He's going to be fine. Let's talk, Kate, about the most disappointing player and the dynasty buy that we have for the Raiders, because I got a feeling it might be the same player.
It is. I think it is. 1, 2, 3, Darren Waller.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. We're on the same page here. Now, I think, again, interesting kind of case study for ageism in the dynasty community, because Darren Waller, much like Davante Adams, is a little bit on the older side. But I also think that, like, when he's healthy, he's kind of a a target hog. He's a very high upside player. He's 30 years old. But he doesn't have a ton of miles on the tires necessarily. He had 2 back-to-back seasons as a top 2 fantasy tight end, and then has battled with health in the past 2 seasons. And I really think that has forced his dynasty value down way too far. In the games he played, had 5 wide receiver 1 performances.
Tight end 1 performances. Yep.
Tight end 1 performances, and just absolutely knocked it out of the park. He was scoring touchdowns. He looks good when healthy. The battle has been health. So I think the real question is, do you have concerns about health moving forward? Is he injury prone, as they say?
No, what happened with him is he had a hamstring injury that never got right in training camp. He tried to play through it, and then he got hurt in week 5 and like the 8th snap of the game, and then he was working through it, pulled it again, kind of rehabbing, and then didn't get back on the field until week 15. It happens. It was just one of those weird years for him. But Kay, I gotta say, I was really encouraged by what I saw when he came back. So let's look at this first 3 games when he came back. I don't really care about the 4th game, but in against the Patriots, Steelers, and 49ers, 3 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown, 4 catches for 58 yards, 3 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown, all while only playing like 49% of the snaps. We know that when he's healthy and he's right, he's going to be on the field 98, 100% of the snaps. He's a dynamic tight end, and there's just not many of these tight ends that, when they're healthy, can finish as the number 1 tight end any week. So because he's being valued on Dynasty League football right now as like tight end 8, tight end 9, I kind of think he's a buy even after a disappointing season.
Yeah, and he's in the thing that's kind of crappy is like he's in this weird sort of segment of tight ends. It feels like a tight end dead zone a little bit. But when you look at other players around him, like Greg Dulcich, love what we've seen out of him in his rookie season. But we know what we're getting with Darren Waller. A lot of the other tight ends in this similar range, it feels like you're kind of taking a shot and you don't know if that's going to work out. If you're going to be in a position to contend, like Darren Waller is that tight end that you want because you know exactly what you're getting with him.
And I just come back to when both guys are healthy, like you mentioned Greg Dulcich and Darren Waller, there's no way that you're starting Dulcich over Darren Waller, right? Like the talent differential is so massive. And we've seen Waller already have 2 1,100-yard seasons under his belt. This is an offense that is pretty tight end friendly. And if they do go out and get an upgraded quarterback, whether that's a Tom Brady, maybe they pay a Geno Smith, maybe they draft somebody, I think you could see Waller's efficiency and target volume go up this offseason. So yeah, I think you and I both absolutely buying Darren Waller this offseason. Let's talk about the Falcons and what happened this year and what could happen next year going forward after maybe a surprisingly competent season from them. But I'm going to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. With LinkedIn Jobs, you can hire qualified candidates with more efficiency. You can help match them with open roles better with people who have the skills, values, and experience to help achieve your goals. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond resume data by using insights from your job post company. They have 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. Identify the most qualified candidates on LinkedIn Jobs and connect them for free. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easy to screen and rate applicants based on your job qualifications. Again, all in one platform. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, let's talk about those Atlanta Falcons. Most valuable dynasty asset from this team.
I think it's Tyler Algier, right? Like,
You said
and
just from
maybe,
last season or going forward? Because there's a difference.
oh, I mean,
From
yeah,
last season,
kinda,
it's
right?
Algier, right?
Yeah,
Well,
and
we'll
I
get
think
to the
like
most disappointing player in a
moving
second.
forward, you don't think Tyler Algier could be the most valuable asset? I don't know. He averaged
No,
4.9 yards per carry.
but it definitely
He
was him this year, without a doubt, without a doubt.
over 1,000 rushing yards in his rookie debut, and that was kind of sharing a backfield with Cordero Patterson, who we know is super explosive. Was finally kind of unlocked by this Falcons team in the run game. Limited use as a receiver, only saw 17 total targets throughout the season, but he was just super efficient with his touches. Had 4 touchdowns from scrimmage. Um, you know, over almost 1,200 total yards. Like, he was a very solid rookie in not such a great offense, which we know, bad offensive play doesn't always mean success for the running back. He kind of defied the odds in this one, and I'm all in on Algier moving forward. He feels like such a huge value.
Yeah, I still don't get why he's being ranked so low on Dynasty League football when you look at where he's at in running back rankings. RB 42 right now, Kate. How is he being drafted that low and ranked that low?
I like it. It honestly doesn't make sense to me. What 1,000 yard rusher can you get for that kind of value, especially when the pathway is so clear for him to maintain that workload? Like, yes, the draft capital wasn't much, but they don't. Why throw picks at the running back position? I know this is a relatively deep running back class, so there's maybe some concerns that they bring in another later round guy, and he has to split the workload. But
Yeah.
I honestly think there's enough he's given them enough reason to believe that this can be primarily his role moving forward. And I don't know why waste the pick when you've got a lot of holes
Exactly.
on that roster that you can fill instead, and just lean on Algier.
I'm not saying that we should rank Algier ahead of these guys, but you tell me why in a dynasty startup you would take David Montgomery at RB 24 when you could wait and get Tyler Algier running back 42. Why would you take Ezekiel Elliott at RB 25 when you can get Algier at running back 42? Why would you take Leonard Fournette at RB 28 when you can get Tyler Algier at 42? I just think he's one of the more undervalued players, despite having 1,000 yards as a rookie. That just doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often, and like, I mean, the advanced metrics just absolutely back it up. Ranked ninth in yards after contact per attempt. In terms of his missed forced tackles, ranks ninth among running backs. He was an explosive runner. He was a forceful runner, and I think everything that you saw is super promising. The only thing we need to see from him is an expansion in his role
Yeah.
as a receiver. But if that comes to fruition, and sometimes the blocking, the blitz pickups, like, those can take time for running backs. Not everybody picks them up at first bait, but if he picks those up, he can be, I think, a weekly RB2, and you're
100%
paying
agree.
RB3, RB4 price.
Next one, most disappointing player for the Falcons in 2022.
I mean, Marcus, say it. There's one. This guy might take the cake for the most disappointing fantasy asset in all of fantasy football this year. Say the name.
Yeah, it's Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
10 games, 356 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did double his touchdowns from the year before.
Ooh.
I mean, listen, this one's especially hard for me considering I had so many trades this year where I traded away a lot to go get Kyle Pitts. Can I give you one without you making fun of me?
I'm not promised that I won't make fun of you, but yes, go ahead.
In a non-tight end premium league, I've traded Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Damian Pierce before the year for Kyle Pitts.
Dang.
So you could
Dang,
I
Marcus.
am very disappointed. So is there any belief that this is going to get better really quickly?
Yes, he's 22 years old. He's
Yeah.
22 years old. Like, let's not forget that he is 22 years old, guys. Like, was not a product within a good offense this season. Like, And honestly, just I don't know. I found the entire narrative around Kyle Pitts and with Arthur Smith, like the entire thing was very puzzling, super puzzling. But like still, despite the lack of usage, a lower catch rate than you like to see, only caught 50% of his targets this year. Saw a decline in efficiency with those targets he did. There's I don't know. There's just so much upside. And again, let me remind you, he is 20 years old or 22 years old. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous that it feels like there are already some people that are kind of out on Kyle Pitts, but you can never be out on Kyle Pitts. And honestly, this is probably like he's being drafted on average this month as the tight end one, on average right around pick 20. And it still feels like that's going to be the cheapest that he will ever
Yeah,
be
I
for
agree.
the rest of his career.
I agree. I think this is probably a good time to buy him if you still believe in the talent. The quarterback situation is still a little hairy, right? Like, do they bring back Desmond Ritter and make him the starter? Do they go out and get a veteran quarterback? Do they draft somebody early? I don't know. Um, but I do know that Kyle Pitts is a ridiculous talent who wasn't healthy for part of the year. I still believe in the player. I hope the situation changes kind of going forward. That's all.
Oh, 100%. There's like things can't remain stagnant, right? And if they did, that's a sign that the organization probably needs to make a few changes, but hopefully they make some adjustments, whether that be at quarterback or what have you. But when Kyle Pitts is healthy, that there's no better just receiving tight end in the NFL when he's at his fullest.
I've got a surprising dynasty sell from this team, Kate, that I want your thoughts on when we come back. I'll let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. Just got through the holidays, and we know the goal for most people is to eat a little bit healthier. If you're like me, where you want to try to eat healthier, but you don't really want to compromise taste, then we've got the thing for you. You've got to try Built Bars. They are so fantastic, and they're actually healthy for you. Covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, 100% real chocolate. They have some unbelievable flavors, including peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. And I will tell you, yesterday I actually just ordered 2 new boxes of the cookie dough, which is my absolute favorite. Not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like candy bars while maintaining amazing macros. Only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar, with a whopping 17 grams of protein. The good news is now you don't have to wait for a box. I know I just told you I ordered one from built.com, which you can absolutely still do. But now you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club. You can head to Walmart today, go to your pharmacy section. You can pick up a 4 box of cookies and cream, or the double chocolate, or the coconut puffs. Or if you want to go to Sam's Club, pick up that 13 box with some of the new hit flavors, including brownie batter or churro. You can thank me later. Again, you can always go to built.com to make an order, but they are also available at Walmart, Sam's Club, again, built.com. Thank you again for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen every day. Subscribe to the Locked On NFL podcast and get daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories, plus in-depth analysis on the biggest games with NFL key predictions every Friday. Local insiders on Monday cover the weekend from game to game episodes. Locked On NFL available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Kate, I have a dynasty sell that I want to throw out to you for the Atlanta Falcons, and it is Drake London.
Oh man.
I know. Drake London had a really nice season, and I think I'm encouraged by what I saw from him, especially in the second half of the season. The problem for me is he's being drafted and ranked ahead of guys like Cooper Kupp and sometimes Chris Olave, sometimes Stephon Diggs. If I can flip Drake London for Cooper Kupp, who I know is older, he's 29 years old, I think I do that because I know Cooper Kupp every single week has a great shot at finishing as the wide receiver one. I just think Drake London's a tad overvalued right now.
I mean, even like for me, right? I'm a huge fan of Drake London. I think the skills that he has as a receiver for somebody, especially of his build and size, like he moves like somebody who is much smaller than he is.
Yes.
I love his hands. I love his ability to just make big plays at the point of catch. And
Mhm.
I think again, like it's really just it's hard to invest too much stock in this team in general. Like I don't want to overinvest myself in any of these assets. If you're going to buy Kyle Pitts, I would recommend you selling Drake London. But I mean, wide drafted as the wide receiver 15, that's ahead of, players who have really kind of proven themselves already year in, year out. Um, Devonta Smith in a similar range, Cooper Kupp. Um, I think we're investing a lot of stock in this receiver without necessarily having the proof. But I still like it, for me, he's more of a hold than a sell because he's 21 years old, Marcus. Like the sky is going to be the limit for this kid when he's with a quarterback that can deliver the ball when
Yep.
he's in a scheme that is friendly. I think there's probably nobody with a higher ceiling and more touchdown upside on that team than Drake London.
All right, so January ADP from Dynasty League Football. These are guys that are all being drafted after Drake London at the wide receiver position. Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 16.
I'll take Drake London. I feel like the ceiling's a little bit
Really
higher.
interesting. Yeah. Okay, all right. We got DJ Moore, wide receiver 18.
I will also take Drake London.
George Pickens, wide receiver 20.
Drake London easily.
And this, I don't get this one. Cooper Kupp, wide receiver 26.
I will take Cooper Kupp. You mean the wide receiver one? Like this? Come on, like stop being ageist. That's my biggest takeaway from the show, Marcus, is that people are ageist, and I'm sick of it. Looking at just like the last 5 games for Drake London, right? Saw a lot of upside. He got plenty of targets, almost 10 targets per game over the last 5 weeks. Averaged just under 90 receiving yards per game. Didn't score any touchdowns, so that's why you're not super happy maybe with those point totals for fantasy, especially in a half PPR. But he is the team's wide receiver 1. Once the touchdowns start coming, and like again, he's a very big wide receiver. He's 6'4". He's going to be a red zone threat if they can get, to the end zone.
Just to tie these shows together early, the 2 segments together. Davante Adams, wide receiver 13, or Drake London, wide receiver 15?
If I'm in a now mode, I'll take Davante Adams. If I'm, maybe closer to a rebuild, I'll take Drake London. But mostly because I think
which one are you taking?
Davante Adams.
Okay,
in a vacuum. But we know Dynasty fantasy football is not a vacuum, Marcus. There are so many different things that make the decision for you and your roster unique, and so many different things you have to consider when you're making those decisions. But I do think that for a team that's again closer to a rebuild, it's really hard to find a receiver with what I think is potential for 1,000 receiving yard seasons, 10 touchdowns, the blink of an eye every single year. Like I feel like that's the kind of wide receiver you could be looking at with Drake London, and to get it, in the same price range as like a DJ Moore feels nice.
Yeah. Just a little bit lower on Drake London. Really like him. I prefer. I'm willing to take some of the older guys over him. That's all. Just a little bit of a differing opinion. That's it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insights you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. All the same places that you'd get the Locked On Dynasty podcast. You can check us out on YouTube. Kate, you and I will be back on Monday to talk about the Panthers and the Saints after this season. Wild years for them. Go follow Kate on Twitter at Kate Magdziuk. Also, go check out her work at the Gaming Society. Just wrote an article on Dak Prescott that you guys need to check out. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy the divisional round playoffs, and we'll see you guys right back here on Monday.